Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ladies' Night. Thank you all for joining us. As promised, this is wedding night. Woohoo!
All of the props.
Don't mind our props.
You don't even realize how many texts we sent to each other today.
So these are all genuine.
Yeah.
Genuine.
Authentic. Yes.
So tonight we just want to let you know a little bit about our relationships with our husbands, in the sense of how we met, how we got engaged, how we got married. And then next week we'll talk a little bit more about life after the wedding. So hopefully this is just a fun kind of...
Get nervous already.
Just something fun tonight, more or less. Not
Right.
so heavy or deep about... Nothing about coronavirus, because we didn't know anything about coronavirus.
No Corona life hacks this week.
So I will say, in case you don't know, so I am married to BJ Fouts. He is pastor at St. John's. We've been married for 15 years. Our anniversary is actually next month, so almost 16 years.
Wash out.
Since then, we've had 4 kids, and made a couple moves, quite a few moves. So that's just a tidbit. We'll get into all the rest after everyone else lets you know their stories.
My husband is Mr. Stephen Whitney. He's the director of music at St. John. Basically, he is BJ's work wife.
I can see
it
him
literally
refer to
is.
himself as that.
Yep. I don't know if he's ever said that at home, but I always think of it that way because they talk more at work about all sorts of different things, and then Stephen sometimes shares, sometimes doesn't. We will be married 6 years in June, so not as long, but we've got a few years under our belt. So,
How many kids?
3 kids.
And a couple moves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple moves. Yeah.
Cassie Benter, married to the Nate Benter.
The one and only.
He does not work at the church. He does something with spreadsheets. Anyway.
But he's always over at my house. So.
But he is Stephen's brother, if anyone asks.
Yeah, that's what they do.
That's what they say. We have been married 2.5 years. We've also made a couple moves. No kids, but 2 dogs.
Which are just like having kids.
Which were not planned. Not even Clue. She just showed up. Anyway, it's okay.
Oh, that's funny.
So, how'd you guys meet?
So we met at camp. Everything I'm going to say has to revolve around camp. Camp Silka, it's by Springfield, Illinois. Plays a huge part in our story. We just kind of met. He had been working there, I think, 2 years before I worked there. And I had kind of not knowing what I was going to do for summer after my freshman year of college. And this really bubbly, her name's Abby. She's from Wisconsin. Abby, I doubt you're watching this, but if you were, you've made a significant part in my life without even knowing it, because you were talking about how awesome camp ministry was, and working there in the summer was a great way for, college kids to get a paycheck and have a lot of fun. So I took you up on that and applied to the camp I went to when I was a kid, and lo and behold, met my future husband right on the first day. So
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah. So
Love at first sight.
for him, not for me. It took about halfway through the summer, but he was the kindest. So the staff at that time, some of you might be watching, hello, they all knew each other, and I didn't know any of them. And they all had gone, most of them were going to like Concordia River Forest.
Good thing.
So they knew each other, but we didn't. I didn't. He knew them from working with them. So it kind of, he was the one who approach me and actually talk to me and get to know me better, instead of just me listening to college jokes that I knew nothing about.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So that's our how we met story. I don't think my picture's gonna.
Oh, it was doing fine.
It's like the wind just. Who wants to go next?
So Stephen transferred into Concordia University of Seward. I had already been there for 2 years, and so our junior year he transferred transferred in from Luther College, which he talks about all the time. Actually, he's kind of past that. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but he used to talk about it all the time. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're talking about Luther College again, which I'm fine with it now. But, but back then I was like, we're at Concordia. Why can't we talk about Concordia? But I get it. So he transferred in. That first year, we were just really, really good friends. He would say that first semester he had no friends, but he got involved with choir and
I've
theater.
heard him say he's had no friends.
He had no. He literally he said he would come into the cafeteria, eat really fast, and leave because he didn't know who to sit with. And I'm like, that is the saddest story. But he said that's what he would do.
Which is so hard to picture Steven going in eating really fast.
He's not an introvert at all. So anyway, like I said, we got to know each other through theater because he was like, well, I'm going to get involved with theater. And he was in Pirates of Penzance, and I was working on set crew things for a class. So loved theater, but I was taking a class and I needed to put in hours. And so during, I don't know if it was Tech Week or if it was when we were putting things away after the show, no, it was, I think, Tech Week, because he ripped his pants and he came down to the sewing shop and he needed help with sewing. And I was in the shop. So anyway, yeah, I know. So we met then, but we were just friends. We did a couple shows that spring together. He was seeing someone else during that semester, and I was like, we're good friends. Like, that's good enough. But I kind of liked him, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to ruin what was going on elsewhere. And so, coming back to college for senior year, by Christmas time, he was available. And I didn't say anything until after Christmas, but he had been kind of thinking the same things. He was interested in me, but he wasn't going to say anything. So I take credit for actually like bringing it up. And so I know. And so when you're at Concordia, and this might be similar to other colleges
I'm sure this
too.
Is
when you're at college, like especially at Concordia though, you're either single or you're in a relationship. And we were like, well, we don't want to just say we're in a relationship. We want to see if this is going to go anywhere. So we kind of didn't say anything to people for probably a month, because otherwise people were going to blow it out of proportion. But it was fine. Everything worked out.
So
So what was the point where you actually told people we're in a relationship?
I mean, we obviously, my sister knew we were dating, so she was making a big deal about it, because I'd never had a boyfriend before either. So it was a big deal, and but I think it was probably a month after we started dating, where we, like, I told my speech team friends, and we told some other theater friends.
Just let it.
So yeah, just kind. I mean, like, people were probably suspecting anyway because we were.
I'm gonna say because
spending.
Stewart's not huge. Student body, right?
Not at all. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's how we got together.
So I have to ask. So then, how'd you make it through the summer then?
So I stayed.
That's a good question.
Right. So you mean that summer when we were dating?
Afterwards, so you started dating in the
So we started dating January 2012.
You have a summer.
Or no, 2012. And he was working at camp. He had been working at the same camp for 4 summers. And I actually stayed in Seward and I was working. So we called each other probably when he could, because he was always busy with counseling.
But it lasted through the summer.
Yeah, it
distance.
did. So
wow.
Yeah, I know. I thought about him a lot. He probably doesn't realize that, but I did. I was like, oh man. I hope he still. I sent a lot. I sent a lot of care packages that summer because I was like, he better remember me.
Yeah.
He better.
And so,
It's a good story. I like it.
Well, mine and Nate's story is a little bit different. We were a little bit older-ish. I was Nate's sister's teacher. So I taught my first year in Arizona, and then I got a call to Sowers, which is in Indiana. It's not actually a town, but it's fine. Just go with me. And so I got a call to Sowers, and ironically, Nate's dad was the school board chairman So I had a dinner actually at Nate's parents' house. I don't remember meeting or seeing Nate there, but Nate, I know you saw me. And I took the call and I moved out there, and I didn't really know him. I'm like getting butterflies just thinking about it now. Oh, I'm so nervous to tell everyone my story. And we met at Church League Volleyball, and I told him he needed to follow through with his swing because everyone was working hard to get him the perfect set. And if he was going to mess it up, we weren't going to send the ball anymore. Which totally makes sense if you've ever played volleyball, the two of us, that I would tell him he was doing something wrong. And I don't remember exactly how it all happened, but we also didn't tell anybody because I was like, this is weird. I'm my sister's teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, this is strange.
And if you would have broken up or something.
Yeah, and then that would have been awkward.
awkward.
Like, oh, and like, I still like think about like what that would have been like, and I like want to be sick from it. But yeah, we didn't tell his sister, but we just let it like ooze through town, and we said like if People Magazine was a thing, we would have been on the cover every week. Because everyone was like, are they dating? Are they not dating? I think they're just friends. I brought him to our staff Christmas party because we started dating around December, and really, they were like, oh, she's bringing him because she has to go pick up her friend from the airport. And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm at an adult school party. And so, yeah, that was his school.
Yeah, that would be.
It was a unique situation. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, oh my gosh, it's cringeworthy thinking about it. But it was just so different, so unique, and it was so weird because I had all these students who were like obsessed with it. And I had a sister in my class. I'm like, will you tell your sister? If I don't know how to tell your sister, that's your job. And like, yeah. Yeah.
So did he get up the courage to ask you first?
Oh, that's a great story. So Nate is a man of very few words when he doesn't know what to be saying. And so my friend Ashley, who's now married to her then boyfriend, just started dating her boyfriend. And I'm like, I don't know if we're dating. Like, he comes over and hangs out with me on the weekends. We like do things together.
Right.
And so I asked him, like, what is this? Because I was like, either like we're gonna do something or I'm gonna go find somebody else because I'm not gonna waste my time. And it's like, I think we could say we're dating. And I was like, no, we've been like, I was very confused. And I drove away. There was a dramatic hug. And then I drove away still very confused. And I was like, I don't even know. So I didn't tell my parents because I thought that was just not enough time. And then Nate met my uncle, and my uncle told my dad. And then my dad called me and said, is this Nate? And I said, I'm sorry, who? He's like, Nate. Don't act like you don't know who Nate is. So, but yeah, and just after that, I mean, we dated for a year, and then we were engaged.
Wow.
It was a very unique situation. Nate was still in college,
Yeah.
but he didn't go up to Purdue. He stayed home. And it's all fuzzy now. Like, that could have probably, like,
Right.
it was very strange.
I think it's unique. I think everyone's story is unique.
Oh, I
And so
think so,
I'm sure
too.
you all have a story too that's
Mm-hmm.
unique. And yeah, did Steven have a good pickup line when you guys had the talk? I just asked because BJ
No.
was, what do you say? I gotta get this right. I like you. I think you like me. What are we gonna do about this?
Nate's
Oh
dad
my
introduced
goodness.
us.
That sounds like something Steven would do, but
Nate's dad, have you met my boy Nate? Nate, awkward, shakes my hand. And I said to him, well, I have to go. The Lions have a game. And I got in the car and drove away. And now that I'm actually thinking about it, we talked only exclusively about NFL through whatever messenger it was for a good couple of weeks. Like, at volleyball, he wouldn't talk to me unless I was telling him what to do. And then, like, he'd be like, so your Lions lost this weekend. What's the point of this? Leave me alone.
well, like I said, I was the one to bring it up. And it's funny because, so it was like a month before Christmas break, and it was Steven and me, and then two of our other college friends, another boy and another girl that were really good friends of ours, still are. And so we would always hang out in the lounge in the dorms, and we'd watch movies until like 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd go to bed.
College life is the
Right,
best.
I know. So so we would do that before Christmas, and so then coming back from Christmas that first week, I had mentioned to my girlfriend that would hang out with us. I was like, I like Steven, but I don't know for sure what to do. And she was kind of like, I don't know. Do you think he likes you? Like, would it be awkward? And I was like, okay, I'm bringing it up. Like, it's going to happen just because if something's not there, then I'm moving on. Like, I'm going to not dwell on this. And so, the other boy and girl, well, I think it was just the girl the one night, left early. And so then it was just me and Steven in the lounge. And so we were talking about random things. I don't even know what we were talking about. And so then right.
The Detroit Lions, clearly.
So then I
Hey,
think
your sister's essay was really nice.
So then I think I awkwardly brought it up, but I was like, I think I had made some comment like, I don't know if you're on the same page or whatever, but I have been like, I've liked you for a while, but I like, if your feelings aren't mutual, like, I'll be okay. Like, I just need to know where you're at, because we've been hanging out a lot. He did not talk. Like, he didn't say anything.
I can't even picture a
He didn't say
speechless Steven.
anything. No, but this was what he did. He pulled out his phone and he's like, just a minute. And he was texting someone. And I was like, who are you texting? And he would not talk or say any, like, no response or anything.
Yeah,
and I was like,
waiting for
can
an
you just,
answer.
I was like, okay, like, if you don't like me that way, just let me know. Like, that, I kept saying that. Like, I don't know why you're on the phone. Like, I was really mad. I was really mad. And so then he finally, he says, okay, so the reason I've been on the phone texting, I've been texting this one camp friend, because every Christmas they would have like a Christmas reunion in December with camp counselors. And he was like, over Christmas break, me and one of my camp friends, we stayed up talking later than other people, because this camp friend, she has insomnia, so she couldn't sleep, and so they would just stay up and talk. And he was like, during one of our chats, she had asked if I was interested in anybody, and you came up. And I was like, oh, well, then this makes perfect sense, but why did you have to sit and text her forever about how, oh, this conversation's happening right now with this certain person? He couldn't have just said, yeah, I like you too.
Now, I will say one of the best moments, or most hilarious moments, I'll never forget, Nate's parents were like, you can invite Cassie over for Sunday dinner after volleyball. And I'll never forget walking in. I can still see Anna's face when we walked. That was the sister that I was teaching at the time. We walked into the house, and she just looks at me, and I just looked at her, and we were both like, and then out of like the random blue, Nate's uncle, who I also teach two of his children, shows up at the house to drop off like Christmas cookies or something. And he walks in with like the biggest smile on his face. Like, he is laughing. I'm just like, this is not good. This is not good at all. Like, again, like, you're just trying to date. You don't know if you're like, going to marry this person.
Right.
And I'm like, now this whole town knows. This guy hired me. This girl's in my classroom. His cousin's in my class. This was a bad idea. Oh, Nader.
So obviously, those meeting stories can be a little awkward. Right. So I don't know how yours was. Maybe yours wasn't.
Maybe yours wasn't as cringy.
So and it's all exciting too. Like, there's that anticipation of not knowing what's going to happen. And
I stayed up till like 2 a.m. talking to Nate after our first date, and I went to go teach the next day, and I was like, oh, I will never do that again. And I only go to bed at like 8:30. Like, this was a big deal.
So we'll move on to our engagement stories. Hopefully not as cringe-worthy.
Oh no,
I don't know.
It gets only better.
So I'll start with mine. So we got engaged at Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, awesome.
And I kid you not. Yes. Why my husband chose that as the place, I kind of do know. So we liked Chuck E. Cheese. We had gone there because we went.
The one by Concordia?
No. This was in
I
Springfield.
had a totally different visual. I'm a little sketchy there.
Yeah, this was in Springfield, Illinois. So we, I don't know. I went a couple times when I was a kid, but I didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese that much. So it was kind of like when we're in college, like, oh, especially during the summer, we can go on dates to Chuck E. Cheese and do skee ball, like, for endless amount of time. So that was a common date. So he chose to propose there. And so so we go through the whole thing.
Your favorite story.
We go through the whole date, kind of, because all I knew it was a date. So we go through it all in summer between school, like, so we're off, but we're at camp. I don't know why. I don't really know. I don't even know actually when our engagement day. Sorry, I'm not much of a romantic.
It happened.
Yeah, it happened. And so we go through it all, and so we're picking out our prizes, right? And you know the prizes you get are, weird things. So I'm trying to like get put our prizes put them together so
Oh,
that we can get
yes.
something bigger. And he keeps pointing at this rose thing, and I'm like, I don't want that. I'm not a
We have this
flower
rose.
person. And so finally he looks at the lady, he's like, let's take that rose. And I'm like, I don't want this rose. Why are you, doing this rose? And so then she gets down, and then he gets down on his knee, and he opens the rose, and inside is my ring. And so, of course he asked and everything. And it was very, that was all, Thankfully there wasn't a lot of people there because it was like during the day. So I bet it was over Easter break or spring break because there weren't any kids in there. So anyway,
That girl at Chuck E. Cheese had the best day at work.
it's funny because it was not what I pictured in my head. In my head, I always thought it would be at camp because camp played such a role in our lives. It would be at camp in a gentle rain, and it would be so romantic. And so I did make him, so the ring was too small or too big, so it had to be resized. So I made him re-propose at camp at one of our favorite places once we got the ring back. So,
Oh, that's cute. I should.
so that's our engagement story.
So he blew your expectations away. That's what you're
Chuck E.
saying.
Cheese. This is my new favorite thing.
I know.
I had my 5th birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese.
I've never actually gone to Chuck E. Cheese. No one ever took me.
Wow.
We never went as a kid, which is fine. Like,
It's fine.
It was like, there was one in Rochester. It was a big deal for us, like every birthday party. And Jeepers, they had an indoor roller coaster. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, that's cool. You avoided lots of germs, so.
oh, good.
But we will take Silas and Eliza and Mary. I'll drink.
Might as well.
We'll go. Nate will love it.
Oh. So my engagement, as I mentioned last week, was it a couple weeks ago?
What led to this whole episode?
Yeah, what led to this whole idea for this episode happened on April Fool's Day, which, as we have talked about with a lot of people, it doesn't surprise a lot of people that Stephen would do that.
But at the same time, you're like,
But why? Why April Fool's Day? There is a reason. There's a reason. Not a significant reason, but just the timeline of what was happening. So it was 2013. And that was the semester that I had my student teaching. And so at Concordia, the third quarter, I went to a location close to Concordia. So I was at Utica, and I student taught there. And then what they do is your second half of student teaching, they send you farther out, especially if you're getting your Lutheran teaching degree. And I was. And so they placed me in Fort Wayne, Indiana for fourth quarter. Yeah. Yep. And so I really did like teaching there, student teaching. So I was out there. We were still dating, obviously. And we had already gone past that, year mark. And so, like, in my head, I was thinking, okay, when you're at Concordia and you've been dating for that long, like, when is it going to happen?
Man.
Well, when is it going to happen? We're graduating in May.
Yeah.
Not to say, like, I was, like, expecting it and planning for it, but, like, yeah, there's always that question. Plus, I was trying to figure out, well, what am I doing next year? Where am I going to teach? Am I taking, should I be taking a call somewhere, or do I want to just, like, wait and not take a call until he's done with internship for DCE stuff? So over Easter break, we had a week-long spring break in Fort Wayne, and Easter is a big deal for me. And I had told my mom and dad, I said, I just want to come home for Easter, and I know it's, a big deal, like. So they flew me home, which was nice. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And then since I had that week off for spring break, where I didn't have to teach, I said, well, I'll just go up to Seward and hang out with my roommate, hang out with Stephen. They were getting ready for spring weekend that week, which spring weekend is a big deal. And so that Monday morning, drove up to Seward, and we went to, when I got to campus, we went to rehearsal because they were putting on The Matchmaker, which is Hello Dolly but without music. And so we went to theater practice, and we were watching them at rehearsal. And halfway through the run, Stephen said, well, let's just go outside. And so I was like, okay. So we were sitting outside of Weller Auditorium, and he was talking about stars in the sky and all this big stuff. And I was like, you're kind of, I don't even know where he was going.
So you hadn't caught on yet?
Yeah, I mean, like, after the conversation kind of started, I was like, it's just weird. But I really hadn't caught on. And another thing to take note, the semester before, I had taken a couple of poetry classes, and so I was writing poetry, I was reading a lot of poetry, and so he had started writing these haiku poems for me.
I've heard he's quite the haiku master.
Oh, yeah. So how he proposed it was in haiku form. I can't even remember the words right now, but it's not appropriate. It wasn't appropriate. It had the fuzzy purple handcuffs, something in there with fuzzy purple handcuffs. You can.
So this is part of his
Yeah,
engagement.
that was part of the
syllables.
engagement.
How do you
Yeah.
fuzzy purple handcuff?
I can't even remember. He let off. I don't know, but
575 Steve.
but the last line was, "Will you marry me?" And I was like, "It's April Fool's Day. You're kidding, right? Like, are you kidding me?" And he's like, "No." And so like I was like, "Well, show me the ring." Like, so he had the box, he had the ring, and so my sister, who was actually working at the college for that year as the forensics coach, she and one of my other friends, the one that left early that night that we got together, were in the bushes video recording it, but it was so dark you can't see anything. So you can hear us, but you can't see us. And then after he proposed, we went into Weller Auditorium. Everyone in there knew what was happening, so they all came racing at us to see the ring and congratulate us. And later on, Stephen told me that the diamond in the engagement ring is actually his great-grandmother's. So, but it was like it was just the perfect ring, because it was like the size that I would have wanted, and it was simple, and so that's our engagement story. So.
A risque haiku.
Oh, I know. It was a risque. I should have probably memorized it. Stephen, if he would watch these, I don't know if he watches them all the way through, but he'd probably be like, "You don't remember?"
I put so much work into that.
I know. So.
Buckle up, ladies. Here's the story of a lifetime. So, we got engaged on New Year's Eve, which is my parents' anniversary. So right now, everyone at home's thinking, a couple weeks before I went home for Christmas break, because I was teaching, I was going to go home for Christmas break, because that's what I still did. Nate asked me, where would you like to be engaged? Like, you knew it was coming. And I said, Disney World. Silly question. And Nate's like, cool, yeah. Like, Indiana or Michigan? And I was like, again, Disney World. And Nate's like, yeah, I'll work on it. And so Nate's birthday is the 27th. My dad's the 29th of December. So I don't know why, but we decided we were going to do like this whole thing to like celebrate my dad and Nate. So I went home for Christmas, did Christmas with my family, and then Nate drove up to come see me. And he had this great plan to propose to me at the Henry Ford Museum, which is in Detroit. And it's like the coolest museum ever. And they have beautiful Christmas trees at Christmas time. So Nate was like, I had this whole plan. But he will claim I hung out with my dad all weekend. I'm like, I go to bed at 8 o'clock. You and my dad do not. There was clearly time. So we never got to ask my dad's permission, knowing that was something I wanted. So on New Year's, so on the 30th, we went to the museum, came back, and Nate's like, well, I didn't get to propose to her. And just like, didn't worry about it. So that night, he says to my mom, like, I need to talk to Ted. My mom's like, I'm on it. And like, so they were watching a boxing fight, which is very big in my house. My dad's like, hey, so like, can I marry Cassie? My dad's like, sure, man. And that was our conversation, essentially. So then the next night, my dad was sitting to my mom and asked him a series of questions. So my dad was like, hey, Nate, come here, I need to ask you a couple questions. Asked him a series of questions. The main one was, will she say yes? Because I think my whole family, in fact, I know, they were convinced I was going to say no.
Oh, wow.
And Nate's like, yeah, I think so. My dad's like, okay, take her out to like a nice lunch or something. Because we were going to go to dinner with my uncle that night for my parents' anniversary. And so we roll up to a restaurant. Nate's like, let's go get food. I'm like, I don't want to get out my sweatpants. This is like ridiculous. And Nate's like, no, this will be really nice. And he's like, let's go. And I forget even the name of the restaurant. I go, where is that? He goes, Troy. I'm like, whatever. The night before, I had a dream. I got engaged, and it was a really ugly ring. And so I was like prepared for this. And I was like, this is real, my dream. I'm a prophet. I always knew that. And so I drove us to this restaurant. we walk in, and Nate goes, I have a reservation under Ted, which is my dad's name. And we're eating lunch, and I'm like, okay, let's just cut to the chase. Nate, like, awkwardly gets under the table and doesn't say anything to me, doesn't tell me how I've made his life better, doesn't tell me anything romantic, and I just stare at him, and he just stares at me, and I hear, and I'm like, so then we got free dessert out of it, which was kind of a win. And they let you take food home, like you get a dish and you take a dish with you. And then apparently, though, the best part of the whole story was I did say yes, and my whole family was like convinced I would say no, and they had a plan, like what they were going to do when we got home if I said no. Like they were going to make me go somewhere else so Kate could comfort Nate and all this stuff. And my bail's falling out. And so, yeah, it was a whole experience. And Nate's always says he got gypped because he had a plan and I ruined it. And my dad didn't say, well, has she ever talked about it? He goes, she wants to get engaged in Disney World, but I don't think I'm going to make that one.
Help me out with the money.
He's like, unless you want to buy us an trip for Orlando real fast. But, I mean, I don't see how that one's going to work out. And so, yep. Yeah, it was good. And every time we watch a chick flick and, like, I'm like, see how he said all those words to her? And Nate's like, I'm not one for words.
You could have a risque haiku.
Yeah, so that was our engagement story. Reservation under my dad's name. Oh, and then Nate paid with the gift card I gave my dad for Christmas. Because my dad said, here, take her out for a nice lunch. And it was like one of those things like On the Border or something else. And I finally said, I just want to go to Chili's. And now I kind of wish we would have gotten engaged at Chili's. Because it would have fit our like love for The Office. Like that would have been ironic.
See, and Steven's whole thing was he couldn't wait. So the first day he saw me when I came back from spring break, he proposed.
So
Nate just should have been, Nate just should have been like, I can't wait. I'm just doing it.
Yeah. And I thought, like, you couldn't call him?
Yeah.
Hey, Ted, it's Nate. How's it going? Question. Can I marry Cassie? Oh, okay, thanks. My dad said something like, I knew that was coming. Like, they moved on. And I remember going to dinner, and I was like, I got engaged. And my uncle's like, I had a feeling this would be happening very soon. And that was the story.
Cool beans. So as you probably heard from all three of us, we did not have the quote Hallmark or love.
There was nothing adorable about it.
But yet we are all still married
and in love.
And in love. So
Nate. And he was such a romantic boyfriend. Like, how was our engagement that lame? It's okay.
Because he was just so nervous about it.
He was so nervous. But my dad said, she's going to say yes. And he was like, I hope so.
Like, you don't know? I think my dad's answer to him was, well, it's about time kind of question. Because we had waited till we got done with school before we actually...
So how many years were you dating?
We were dating 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
We were dating quite a few, so...
Yeah, we were around in the 1 year mark.
Yeah.
And so
we'll move on to our wedding stories.
They just keep getting better.
Probably a little, now that there is us into the picture, probably a little bit more maybe organized or planned. I don't know. We'll see. So our wedding happened at camp. Our frame to our big picture broke, so I had to bring our engagement picture. But so we got married at camp. It was really simple. We just had the people really that we loved, our family, our friends. One of my favorite pictures from that day is actually we had all the camp people, everyone who worked at camp at some point took a picture with them in our wedding garb, and it was just a really sweet thing. I would say probably a funny story, a little bit of a funny story, is my husband forgot to ask his best man to be in our wedding.
Oh my goodness.
So
how does one forget?
I have no idea.
Do you want to be my best man? Oh, that just keeps slipping my mind.
So it was funny because this he was studying to be a DCE, so he was a transfer student. He was probably maybe a year or two younger than we were, but he and BJ just really hit it off at Concordia, and so he was going to be at camp. You had to park up on top of the hill. You couldn't park down close to where the outdoor chapel where we got married at, and so my parents, thinking about the older people who would be there, thought that they should get like a, it was super big, I think, golf cart to transport them back and forth. This was very nice. My mom, thank you, Mom, you really stepped up to the areas where I just want to get married, mine didn't think about. So anyway, this kid was going to drive the golf cart. So he laughs at the fact that I think within a week he got promoted from golf cart driver to best man. So
Funny.
our wedding party was just my maid of honor and his best. We just had the one on each. So
Anyone on your side.
I just need someone to come stand here real fast.
I don't know why he forgot. I don't know. It's
That's
just kind of one of
hilarious.
those. In his defense, I mean, we were finishing up college. It was our senior year. We had transferred. He had been in college for like 7 years because he couldn't figure out what he wanted to do in life. And I had transferred, so it added an extra year onto my college. And so, yeah. So in his defense, we both were pretty stuck in, into the school stuff. But trying to think anything else special. I will say this is a little bit of my Jesus part too. Is our wedding. Our pastor was one of the. He always came out to do Pastor of the Week duties at camp. Pastor Koshman. He's just an awesome guy. He's a single guy. So pre-marriage counseling with him was quite interesting. It's pretty much, you'll figure it out. But he always called us his kids and stuff. And so we really were blessed and honored to have him preach for us. Well, the year before, our friends, Josh and Rebecca, who actually, Josh now is actually the camp director at Camp Slicka. They had gotten married in the outdoor chapel. And during that, and had Pastor Koshman do their wedding. And during that, Pastor Koshman got out a machete and was waving it around them as he is doing his sermon, because he is talking about cleaving, leaving your father and mother and cleaving to your wife. So what better illustration other than a machete knife?
I can't imagine anything.
Dangerous.
So knowing in a year that we're going to be doing this too, our only stipulation to him was, please don't bring out any deadly weapons. So he instead decides to preach about being bonded to one another in life, and being the three chords, I think was kind of this verse he used, but how we are bonded with Christ too. And so he started with the wedding ring, and then it got bigger, and then my brothers start rolling down this huge tractor tire inner tube. And so that was the bond. So we needed a bond that big. So we have pictures with this huge tractor tube. So yeah, that was the random thing. So
Huh.
not a machete. So it was just for us, it was perfect. It was exactly who we were. In fact, that's what our friend said. We didn't have a dance. We had a square dance. Because that's what we did at camp. We did square dances, not real dances. So we did square dance. We sang. We had guitars. The director at the time, Rich, and the assistant director, Kevin, played the guitar for us for the music, and Ricky did the piano on a keyboard. It was just really simple, laid back, outdoors. It was exactly who we were, and it'll always be a wonderful memory in my head. So it was good.
I know, it's so funny because like you build up to this day and it's just gone so fast. Like it's hard to remember everything that happens during the day because you're moving,
Yes.
or you're, waiting for the next thing to happen, So we got married down at my home church. If that wouldn't have been where we got married, we probably would have had a camp wedding, just like you guys, just because camp was so important to Stephen. And I probably wouldn't have argued, but we did have it at my home church, and I liked that. So I guess I talked about my bandanas. I brought bandanas for the girls this week.
Getting my wedding favor.
I know. I have so many of them.
6 years after the wedding.
Yeah. Still finding them everywhere. So that was one of the big things. I remember like just setting up our reception area the day before, and like my bridesmaids were there, Stephen's groomsmen were all there. So just leading up even just to our rehearsal, it was just a day of like fun. Like we hung out, we went back to my parents' house on the farm, and we had lunch. And so I just remember everybody like just sitting in chairs in my garage eating lunch that we had gotten from Jana's and Stella. And so just like preparing for that. So the night before our wedding, my sister and I, we went back to our hotel room and we're like, well, we're going to take showers tonight so that our hair is, you know, dry in the morning. We can just do our hair in the morning. The hotel that we were at, where all the girls were staying, did not have hot water. And so we went over to where the boys were staying. One of our girlfriends that had come down to go to the wedding, thank you, Mallory, for letting us use your shower that night, let us take showers that night. But then all my bridesmaids had cold showers in the morning. And then my parents, I remember my mom calling and like complaining after the weekend to say like, hey, none of us had hot water. So that's a fun memory from the night before the wedding. And then I remember Stephen talking about how that morning of our wedding, all of his camp friends that had come down, they had a devotion and prayer and stuff before all the chaos of that day, which I thought was really cool. We had a ton of camp friends come and a ton of our college friends, and then a whole bunch of our family. So it was probably, I want to say 250 people just basically celebrating with us. So the one thing so I'll get closer. This picture right here is of us dancing kind of after our wedding ceremony. We went and we had a reception in Humboldt, Nebraska. And so we were taking pictures with our photographer and he was like, this is like the epitome of this couple. Like he posted that the next morning. He's like, this is so much fun. Like this just captures everything that these two are about. But we talked a lot about the cord of 3 strands cannot be easily broken, and how, you know, if you don't have God in your relationship, you're missing out, because what's going to hold you together? He's the glue. And I just remember, like, growing up, there would be times, like, my dad was the elder a lot, and there'd be times where I'd be like, oh, Dad's not elder tomorrow. Maybe that means we're not going to go to church. But, like, I couldn't even imagine thinking that now. Like, Mary, I know that Stephen works at the church, but, like, it's not even a question of, like, going to church in the morning. And I'm glad that my kids growing up now will kind of hopefully have that in their mindset of, we're going to church tomorrow. Like, it's not a question of if or when, like, we're going. So I kind of like that whole idea. I guess taking that from our marriage meeting. But I could talk on and on about that day, but I feel like I covered a good chunk of what that day was like for me. So, Cass.
You should never tell me I can't do something, because that means it's going to happen. So Nate and I got engaged in December, and people were like, when are you going to get married? And I was like, I don't want to be engaged forever. Like, that's just going to take forever. And that's just going to drag on and on. And so, but I was like, summer seems really close. And then I was like really convinced we should elope. But Nate's too much of a family guy to elope. And you have to understand, my grandparents eloped. My mom and dad got married in Vegas. Like, they didn't like elope. Like, my granny was there and other people were there, but like, it was just like my mom, my aunt, my uncle, my dad, my grandmother, and I think his sister. That was it.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like all about that, but Nate was like, no, like New York, running around in this, like that would have been so cool.
Yeah.
Instead, we got married on October 20th in the fall, because someone said teachers can't get married in the fall, and I said, watch me. So I did parent-teacher conferences Tuesday and Wednesday. Went to school Thursday, said, can I leave early to go get married? They said, sure. Drove to Detroit for our fall break. Or it was a Wednesday. So I left for school early Wednesday. Left at like 1 o'clock so Nate and I could get to Michigan and like relax and pick up a groomsman. Because we thought it was embarrassing that a groomsman was actually going to beat us to Michigan. So we're like, okay, we got to beat Rollins, which makes sense if anyone who's watching this knows. So we picked up Rollins from the airport and just we're able to be there. And we got married on a Friday and relaxed on a Saturday, and I taught on Monday.
Wow.
Like, I was like, I can get married in October. And they still called me Miss Irwin all year because I did not respond to Mrs. Benter.
Yeah,
like, the kids would be like, Mrs. Benter. And I'd be like doing something and like just ignoring them completely. So they still call me Miss Irwin. Like you said, it's just such a fast day. But everyone said our day just represented us. Like, it was very chill. Like, we got married in my home church, and we made that as beautiful as I could have. And my one friend said, that's the point. Everything else is just a party. And so Nate and I spent a good chunk of our year dating, going to breweries. Legitimately, that's like all we did. Football, Purdue, breweries. If you can say those three things, you got our dating life down. And so we had it at a brewery in Detroit, which was pretty awesome. Or like, we got married in the church, went to the brewery, and everything was just calm. We had played cornhole, we had giant Jenga, we gave out cards, we didn't dance, like, because that just wasn't our personalities. And I don't like emotional things, so I didn't want to deal like a dance with my dad. Like, that would have been like, ugh. Like, walking down the aisle was enough. And my dad's like, why are we crying? He's like, it's just like a track race. I'm like, it's just like a track race, just like a track race. This is nothing like a track race, Dad. I did high five people as I walked down the aisle though, to try to lighten the mood. But we didn't do a unity candle, we did a unity cross. So this breaks into multiple pieces. There's a base, which is to represent like our families, our upbringing, and the crosses come apart. And the one cross is the protector, which is your husband. And Nate's mom brought this into the church. This one's the beauty, which is me. And so, but then there's 3 pegs, which represent the Holy Trinity. And I think so much about that, because that adds that stability. Without those pegs, it wobbles and wobbles and wobbles, and that holds it together. But I just think about the day before we didn't do our marriage counseling with the pastor who married us, because he was in Michigan, we were in Indiana. So we did it with our pastor in Indiana, but the pastor I grew up with married us. And we were talking to him, and I remember him like running through our vows, and Nate and I both like got choked up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry in front of all these people tomorrow. And Nate and I left, and we were like, I'm so glad we did that today, because it was not as emotional the day of the wedding. But just those words that you say, you don't realize how powerful they are. And like, Nate as my protector, I think about that all the time, because sometimes everyone thinks I'm the protector of the family. Like, I'm just that personality. Like, we joke around, if someone breaks in the house, I'm going to be the one to beat him up, not Nate. But Nate does lay down his life for me in so many ways. Like, I got him to move to Nebraska. And he did not want to move to Nebraska. But like, just all those things, and how, though, even if he is protecting me and I bring all these things, without that stability, we talk about it all the time. Why did we were married for not even a year. I'm like, let's move halfway across the country. Won't that be fun? We don't know anyone there. This will be great. And so I just think about that stability and that base. And that base is important that our parents and our grandparents laid for us, but just that we were held together by that. And God is the same in Indiana and in Michigan and in Nebraska. And that got us through. I will say, after the wedding, our 1-year anniversary, Purdue beat Ohio State. And that was Nate's best day of his life. So our honeymoon was to a Purdue game. It was super romantic. And our friends came with us and stayed in the same hotel as us. So we went boiler up. But yeah, it's such a whirlwind.
Yeah.
But we made it our own, because I was the last of my friends to get married. I was like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to pay for it.
Yes. Yeah.
It was a good time.
I just like the fact that like all 3 of us have moved away from home. Like it was funny when Steven decided he was going to accept his call to Sterling after his internship. Like, that was away from Minnesota, but it was also away from Nebraska. And like, when you're away from family members, like we were away like 6 hours away from family, you rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, I think that really helped our first year of marriage, and for
Mm-hmm.
sure, just because like it was us. Like, if we were going to get through something, we relied on each other. So I think it's just really interesting that all of us have kind of gone through that, where we're away from family.
I remember last summer, Natasha said, well, how was this move? Like, she's like, we're looking at, and I remember driving here, I was with Natasha one time, and she's like, and you just got married? And I'm like, I did just get married. Oh my God, what are we doing? And then I remember talking to her, ironically, like after that year, and I said, it's just us. We had no one else to rely on, no one to run away to.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Nate versus Cassie.
Yeah.
Like, or Nate with Cassie, depending on the situation.
I think that's huge. I know for us, that has always been our stories, that we've always kind of been on our own. And there are times when it'd just be so nice to have the grandparents
Right.
close by, or even, Christmas or Easter when
Yeah.
you can't go.
Right.
It'd be nice to have
Yeah.
that family, but at the same time, that cleaving,
Yes.
that cleaving from to one another, leaving
Mhm.
your mother and father and cleaving to one another is so much more pronounced when you're not He totally just threw me off. Nate just popped in. Totally just threw me
Doesn't
off.
have his camel on.
So that leaving and cleaving is
Girls
huge
always-
when you are on your own. And thank you, Nate, for saying yes to Cassie coming to Nebraska. Because we would be very, very sad. I know, because I've told Cassie this before, but I think what she has brought to our school is tremendous. And being a lover of literature and seeing
I
how,
love books.
and seeing even how you have helped our kids grow in their English skills is amazing. So I am so thankful that Nate was willing to make that trip to come here. So
While he's feeding the dog.
No, he's putting top to little cow.
Never mind, he's taking care of the lawn.
so
He's a man.
one we'll wrap up here. One thing I just thought I would say is one thing I've learned recently on this cruise that BJ and I went to. One of the takeaways I got was so many times in our marriages we focus on the negative. We focus on that part that drives us nuts about the other one.
Yeah.
And when you think of your wedding day,
No.
It's perfect.
when you think of your wedding day, all you thought probably was, hopefully, some of you might not have, but hopefully was the positive and how
Yeah.
much you loved about that person and how you really did want to be married to them.
They ate a burger at my dad's house at like 7 in the morning. I don't even. My whole day was just a blur. I just thought about that. I'm sorry. Go on.
No, that's fine.
George Foreman girl. I was like, "You want a cheeseburger?" I'm like, "No, he wants to leave." So we can. Sorry, Jess. Go
No,
ahead.
you're
Yeah,
fine.
I wanted to be married.
But when you think about, you married your spouse because they had more positives than they had negatives. So letting that negative take up more of your thought space and letting it control your thoughts about your spouse, why? Why do we do that? It's not worth it. Why not, when you're in that negative space, say, nope, I'm going to think about a positive. And I have literally written out positives so that I can visually say, okay, this is the positive I'm going to focus on, because right now he is doing something that I just don't understand and I can't stand. But right now I'm going to focus on this positive, and it does change your attitude. So when you think about your wedding, think about the why you got married to that person. And I hope for everyone that was a wonderful day. So next week,
He's over there. True love, Nate.
I think, like, thinking about, like, positives and everything, there's one thing, like, from our day that I'll never forget. And Steven's not a, like, emotional person at all. But, like, first look, we did do a first look.
I wish I would have done a first look. I talk about that all the
We
time.
did do a first look. And so, like, obviously the photographer's like, okay, like, tap him on the shoulder so he knows that he can turn around. He was crying before he turned around. Like, and, like, obviously then I was bawling because I was like, why are you crying?
I'm like,
But like I
Yes.
said, not an emotional person. I don't think I'd ever seen him cry before that. And so, yeah, that, like, so to see that side of him that day was a positive, like, yeah.
My friend Katie is an emotional words of affirmation person, so she had everyone write me cards. And Nate wrote a card, and he wrote a thing for every day since we've been engaged of reasons why he loved me. Now, some do repeat. And he said, I typed this, and I hope you won't proofread it. And, like, it's like, oh, you wrote that one twice. But I think about those things, and, like, that was a lot of days.
yeah.
And so, yeah, but that emotion that you don't sometimes see in your husband. You don't. It's
Because
not
they're
a
supposed to be
they
tough.
don't. They don't come down and tell me, like, hey, Cassie, you made my life better
Yeah.
because of you.
That was it's funny you say that, because this is kind of more on next week, actually, after.
Like, after the marriage or wedding.
Totally
But, like,
okay. This is
we were in a
preview.
random, like, car trip going into, this is our old call, like, I think the kids weren't with us, so I'm not even sure where we were going. But he randomly told me, it's like, my life is better now because you're in it. And I'm like, that's the sweetest thing you have ever said to me. So,
Steven's never said this.
I'll tell him.
Steven, you know your script.
He knows he's not a words of affirmation person. I've accepted it.
So we
Love
hope,
languages. That could be another one.
yes, we could totally
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
we could totally book you guys if you wanted it, as in,
Yeah.
tell you tons of titles, but you probably, unless you can talk to any one of us, and I'm sure we would give you lots of titles for
Yes.
marriage enrichment and whatnot.
Oh, yes.
So thank you for joining us. We hope this was a fun kind of get to know us a little better and our relationships, but also hopefully to
Don't mind me.
remind you of your wedding if you are married. And so next week we will talk a little bit about life after the wedding when all of this is over. and you
Have to deal with each other.
have
And
to
you
deal
have
with
to
each
eat a
other.
whole cake because
You will.
Because now we are going to eat cake.
we are
So-
going to eat cake.
Thank you all.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.